I remember the exact second my children decided I no longer existed. It was 8:17 in the morning. I know that because I kept staring at the clock on my phone, as if time itself might argue with what was happening. It did not. The front door closed. Locked. From the inside. And I was left standing on the porch of the house I had paid for, the house I had built my life around, the house where every wall carried a memory. My suitcase sat beside me. One suitcase. That was all I was allowed to take. 75 years of living, reduced to what could fit into something with wheels. I knocked once. Not hard. Just enough. Because a part of me still believed this was some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe Daniel would open the door. Maybe Sarah would say this had gone too far. Maybe someone would laugh and say it was all a mistake. No one came, but I knew they were there. I could feel it. That quiet stillness behind the door. The kind that only exists when people are holding their breath, pretending not to hear. I leaned closer, and that was when I saw it. A shadow moved behind the curtain. They were watching me, making sure I left. That was the moment something inside me did not break. It went cold. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter. Heavier. Final. A neighbor across the street slowed their car. Looked at me. Then quickly looked away, like witnessing this made them uncomfortable. That look told me everything. This was not sudden. People knew. Just not me. I picked up my suitcase. My hand trembled, not because I was weak, but because my body had not caught up with reality. I had signed papers a few weeks earlier. Daniel said it was for tax adjustments. Sarah had smiled the whole time, reassuring, calm. They had even made coffee that morning. Sat with me. Talked about small things. Asked about my health. Normal. Too normal. I signed because they were my children. That was my mistake. By the time I reached the sidewalk, the truth had already begun to settle in. That house was no longer mine. Legally. Completely. They had planned this. Every step. Every word. Every smile. I stopped walking. Not because I did not know where to go, but because I suddenly realized something much worse. They did not just take my home. They made sure I had nowhere else to go. No savings left untouched. No backup plan. No support. Clean. Precise. Like I had never mattered at all. I sat down on the edge of the curb, the suitcase beside me. For a moment, just a moment, I allowed myself to feel it. The weight. The betrayal. The kind of silence that presses against your chest until breathing feels like work. 75 years. And this is how it ends, I thought. But then something strange happened. A memory surfaced. Not soft. Not comforting. Sharp. Clear. A conversation I was not supposed to hear. It had happened weeks earlier. Late at night. Daniel on the phone. His voice low, tense. "It is done soon," he had said. "After that, the property is clear." Property. Not home. Not family. Property. And another voice, faint, almost swallowed by distance. "Make sure there are no complications." I did not understand it then. I understand it now. This was bigger than my children. Much bigger. And somehow, I had just been removed from the equation. I stood up again, slower this time. The pain was still there. But something else had taken its place. Awareness. If they had gone this far, it meant one thing. They were afraid of something. And whatever that something was, it was still out there, waiting. I took one last look at the house. No anger in my eyes. No tears either. Just a quiet promise forming somewhere deep inside me. They thought this was the end of my story. They were wrong. I turned and started walking. No destination. No plan. Just movement. Because standing still meant accepting what they had done. And I was not ready to do that. Not yet. About 30 minutes later, I reached a part of town I had not visited in years. Empty streets. Closed buildings. The kind of place people forget exists. And that was when I saw it. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. A rusted structure behind a broken fence. Tall walls. Barred windows. Faded paint barely clinging to concrete. It took me a second to recognize it. An old county jail. Abandoned. Left to decay. The gate hung open slightly, creaking with the wind. There was a sign nailed crookedly to the front. Most of the letters had faded, but one line was still readable. For sale. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it felt absurd. I stepped closer. There was a smaller piece of paper taped underneath. Handwritten. Messy. 5 as is. $5. I stared at it longer than I should have. Not because I was considering buying it, but because something about it did not make sense. Nothing sells for $5. Not land. Not buildings. Not something like this. Unless No one wanted it. Or worse, no one was supposed to have it. That same cold feeling from earlier returned. Stronger this time. I looked at the jail again. At the broken windows. The rusted bars. The silence that felt wrong. And for reasons I could not explain. I stepped inside. The air changed immediately. Heavier. Still. Like the place was holding on to something. I walked slowly. Each step echoing through empty corridors. Cells lined both sides. Doors slightly open. Some bent. Some locked. And then I noticed something that made me stop completely. One of the cells was not empty. Not in the way the others were. This one had something inside. A metal box. Old. Covered in dust. But untouched. Placed carefully, like it had been left there on purpose. Waiting. I did not know why I walked toward it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was instinct. Or maybe it was the beginning of something I had not yet understood. Because in that moment, standing inside a rusted jail no one wanted, with nothing left in my life, I was not just a person who had lost everything. I was standing at the edge of something much bigger, and I had no idea that this $5 place was about to change everything. I should have walked away. Any reasonable person would have. An abandoned jail, falling apart, sitting in a forgotten part of town, priced at $5 like it meant nothing. But I was not thinking like a reasonable person anymore. I had just been erased from my own life. And for the first time, I had nothing left to lose. I stood in front of that metal box for a long moment before touching it. Dust covered the surface, thick enough that no one had been here in years. Maybe longer. That alone should have warned me. It did not. I bent down slowly, my joints reminding me of my age, my body reminding me of everything I had already endured that day. The lid resisted at first. Then it gave way with a dull scrape. Inside, there were papers. Old. Yellowed. Stacked neatly. That detail caught my attention immediately. Decay does not organize things. People do. I picked up the top document carefully. Most of it was faded, but a few lines were still readable. Names. Dates. And one word repeated again and again. Transfer. I frowned. Property transfers. Ownership changes. Signatures. This was not prison paperwork. This was something else. Something that did not belong in a place like this. A faint sound behind me broke my focus. I turned sharply. Nothing. Just the hollow echo of wind moving through broken walls. Still, the feeling remained. That quiet sense that I was not alone. I closed the box. Not because I had lost interest, but because I suddenly understood something simple. If something valuable was left behind, it was either forgotten or hidden, and hidden things rarely stay hidden by accident. I stepped back out into the open air, the weight of that place still clinging to me. The sign was still there. For sale, 5. I looked at it again, this time with different eyes. This was not a joke. It was a door. The question was, who wanted it closed? And why was it still open? I took a breath and pulled out my phone. The number on the sign was barely readable, but I managed to piece it together. It rang twice. A voice answered. Short. Direct. No greeting. You calling about the property? Yes, I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The old jail. A pause. Long enough to feel intentional. That place is not worth your time. Then why is it for sale? Another pause. This one heavier. $5, the voice said. Cash. No questions. No paperwork complications. That was the second thing that did not make sense. No paperwork complications. Nothing involving land works that way. Nothing legal, at least. Why so cheap? I asked. The answer came quickly this time. Because no one wants it. That was not the truth. I could hear it in the tone. Flat. Controlled. Careful. I tightened my grip on the phone. I will take it. Silence. Then, for the first time, the voice shifted slightly. You are serious. Yes. Another pause. Then a quiet response. Meet me in 30 minutes. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. My heart was beating faster now. Not from fear. From something else. Something sharper. This was not random. And somehow, I had just stepped into the middle of it. Underscore. The meeting point was a small, nearly empty office a few blocks away. The kind of place that looks temporary even when it has been there for years. The man inside did not introduce himself. He did not ask questions either. He simply looked at me, longer than necessary. like he was trying to figure something out. "You came alone," he said. It was not a question. "Yes." He nodded slowly, then reached into a drawer and pulled out a thin folder. "This is a direct transfer," he said. "You sign, you pay, it is yours." I opened the folder. The paperwork was minimal. Too minimal. Just enough to make it official. Not enough to explain anything. That was intentional. "Who owned it before?" I asked. His eyes met mine. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he gave a small, almost invisible shake of his head. "Does not matter." It mattered, and he knew it. But I did not push. Not yet. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out $5. Placed it on the table. The smallest transaction of my life. And somehow the heaviest. He watched the money for a second before sliding the folder toward me. "Once you sign," he said quietly, "there is no going back." That line stayed with me. Not because of what it meant legally, but because of how it sounded. Like a warning. I picked up the pen. For a brief moment, my hand hesitated. Not out of doubt. Out of awareness. This was the second time in weeks I was signing something without fully understanding it. The first time it cost me everything. This time, I looked up at him. What is really inside that place? The question hung in the air. He did not answer. Directly. Instead, he leaned back slightly and said something I did not expect. "If no one has claimed it by now, maybe it has been waiting." Waiting. For what? For who? I signed. The pen moved smoothly across the paper. And just like that, it was done. The jail was mine. For $5. When I stepped back outside, the air felt different. Not lighter. Sharper. Like something had shifted. I stood there for a moment, holding the folder in my hand, trying to process what I had just done. I had no home, no support, no plan. And now, I owned an abandoned jail with a past no one wanted to explain. It should have felt like a mistake. It did not. Because deep down, I knew one thing. This place was connected to something bigger, something hidden. And somehow, my children had tried very hard to remove me from anything that might expose it. That realization hit harder than anything else that day. They did not just abandon me. They moved me out of the way. The question was, of what? A sound behind me pulled me out of my thoughts. A car engine. Slow. Deliberate. I turned slightly. A black sedan sat across the street. Engine running. Windows tinted. Facing directly toward me. It had not been there before. I felt it instantly. That same cold awareness from earlier. I was being watched. Not casually. Not randomly. Intentionally. The car did not move. Not for several seconds. Then slowly it drove off. No rush. No hesitation. Like it had seen what it needed to see. I stood there, completely still. The folder in my hand suddenly felt heavier. This was no longer just about survival. I had stepped into something. And now, something had noticed. I looked back in the direction of the jail. That rusted, silent structure waiting at the end of an empty street. $5. That was all it cost to walk into this. And somehow, I knew the real price had not even begun to show itself yet. I started walking back. Not because I felt safe, but because I understood something very clearly now. Whatever was hidden inside that place was the reason my life had been taken apart so carefully. And if that was true, then walking away was no longer an option. Because for the first time since that door closed behind me, I was not running from something. I was walking straight toward it. And somewhere, in the distance, whether I could see them or not, I knew they were watching again, waiting to see what I would find next. I knew the moment the sun started going down, I should not stay. Every instinct said leave. Find a motel. Sit somewhere with lights, people, noise. Somewhere normal. But nothing about my life was normal anymore. And something about that place pulled me back. Not gently, not inviting. More like a question that refused to let go. So I returned. The sky had already begun to darken when I reached the jail again. The shadows stretched longer now, swallowing the broken edges of the building, making it look even more abandoned than it had earlier. Or maybe, less abandoned. The gate creaked as I pushed it open again. That sound echoed louder this time. Too loud. Like the place was announcing my arrival. I stepped inside. The air felt colder. Heavier than before. It wrapped around me in a way that made me slow down without realizing it. I told myself it was just the temperature. Just old concrete. Thick walls. no sunlight. But my body did not believe that explanation. I moved deeper into the corridor. Each step echoed back at me, slightly delayed. That delay bothered me. Sound does not behave like that in empty places. Unless the space is not as empty as it seems. I stopped walking. Listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just silence. But not the kind that feels calm. The kind that feels like it is waiting. I forced myself forward. Cell after cell passed on either side. Open doors. Rusted bars. Cracked floors. Then I reached it again. The cell with the metal box. It looked exactly the same. Untouched. But something felt different. I stepped closer. And then I saw it. The dust. It had shifted. Not completely disturbed. Just enough to notice. A faint drag mark near the edge of the box. As if it had been moved. Slightly. Recently. My chest tightened. I was here earlier. I closed that box. I remember exactly how it looked. This was not the same. Which meant one thing. Someone else had been here. After me. The realization did not come with panic. It came with clarity. That car. The one that had been watching me. They had not just followed me. They had come here. I crouched down slowly. My hand hovered over the lid. For a second, I hesitated. Not out of fear. Out of awareness. Whatever was inside this box. Someone else cared enough to come back for it. And they had not taken it. Why? I opened it again. The papers were still there. Stacked. But not perfectly. One page sat slightly out of place. I pulled it out. This one was different. More recent. Not decades old like the others. The ink was clearer. The names easier to read. And one name made my breath stop. Daniel. My hand tightened around the paper. I read it again. Slower. Carefully. There was no mistake. My child's name was on this document. Not as a witness. Not as a bystander. As a participant. A transfer authorization. Connected to this property. Dated months ago. Before everything happened. Before I was pushed out. Before the signatures. Before the lies. My mind tried to reject it. To find another explanation. There was none. This was not coincidence. This was involvement. And suddenly, everything shifted. This was not just about inheritance. Not just about money. This place, this jail, had been part of something my children were already connected to. And somehow, I had become a problem they needed to remove. A sharp noise snapped me out of it. A metallic clang. Somewhere deeper inside the building. I froze. That was not the wind. That was not imagination. That was real. I stood up slowly. Every muscle alert now. Listening. Waiting. Another sound. Softer this time. A scrape. Like something dragging across concrete. My eyes moved toward the darker end of the corridor. The part one had not explored yet. The shadows there felt thicker. Denser. Like they were hiding more than just darkness. I should have left. Every logical thought said walk out. Now. But logic had stopped guiding me the moment I saw that document. I took a step forward. Then another. The sound stopped. Completely. That silence returned. Heavier than before. Like whatever had made the noise knew I was listening. I reached the end of the corridor. There was a door. Half closed. I did not remember seeing it earlier. That alone was enough to make my pulse rise. I pushed it open slowly. The hinges groaned. Inside. A smaller room. No cells. No windows. Just walls and something else. Files. Stacks of them. Boxes. Shelves. This was not a holding area. This was storage. Hidden. Deliberately. I stepped inside. My eyes scanned quickly. Labels. Dates. Names. Too many. This was not random. This was organized. Carefully. And then I saw it. A folder, already open. Sitting on top of one of the boxes. Like it had just been placed there. Waiting. For me. I approached slowly. Every instinct now screaming one thing. You are not alone. I picked up the folder. Inside photographs. Properties. Documents. Signatures. Different locations. Different names. But the pattern was clear. People losing ownership. Quietly. Legally. Clean. Just like what had happened to me. My hands started to shake. Not from weakness. From anger. From understanding. This was a system. And my children were part of it. A sudden sound came from behind me. Footsteps. Close. Too close. I turned instantly. The doorway was empty. But I knew what I heard. Someone had been there. Watching. Listening. Waiting for me to find this. My heart was pounding now. Not out of fear. Out of certainty. I was not supposed to see this. And now that I had, there was no going back. I grabbed the folder. Held it tight. And stepped back into the corridor. Faster this time. Every sound sharper. Every shadow suspicious. I did not run. Not yet. But I did not slow down either. Because one thing was clear now. This place was not abandoned. It was active, hidden, and dangerous. I reached the exit and stepped outside into the cold night air. Only then did I stop. Only then did I breathe. I looked back at the jail. That rusted structure that everyone ignored. That $5 mistake. Except it was not a mistake. It was evidence. And somehow, I had just become part of it. I tightened my grip on the folder. My children thought they had removed me from the picture. But what they did not realize was this. They had pushed me directly toward the truth. And now, I had something they did not expect me to find. Something they would not want me to keep. I looked down at the papers in my hand. Then back at the dark building. And for the first time since everything began, I understood the real danger. It was not losing my home. It was knowing too much. Because now, they would not just watch me. They would come for what I had. And the next time, they would not leave it behind. I did not sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I stayed inside the jail, sitting against a cold wall, the folder pressed tightly against my chest like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Every sound felt louder in the dark. Every shift of air made me alert. But nothing happened. And somehow that was worse. Because silence like that does not mean safety. It means something is waiting. By morning, my body was exhausted, but my mind had sharpened into something else entirely. Clear, focused, unwilling to ignore what I had seen. I opened the folder again as the first light pushed through the broken windows. This time, I went through everything slowly, carefully. Each page told the same story in a different way. Properties transferred, owners removed, signatures obtained under legal consent. No noise, no conflict, just quiet displacement. Just like mine. But this was larger. Dozens of names, different locations. And then, patterns started to connect. The dates lined up with financial filings. The properties aligned with redevelopment zones. This was not random. This was targeted and buried within those documents. I saw it again. Daniel's name. Not once. Multiple times. Signed. Authorized. Connected. I closed my eyes briefly. Not to escape it, but to accept it. There was no misunderstanding left. My child was part of this. And Sarah, if one was involved, the other knew. That truth should have broken me. Instead, it hardened something inside me. Because this was no longer just about betrayal. This was about control. And I had just stepped outside of it. A sharp knock shattered the silence. Not from inside. From the front gate. I stood up instantly. Every sense alert. Another knock. Louder this time. Deliberate. Whoever it was, they knew I was here. I moved toward the entrance slowly. Each step measured. No sudden movement. No sound. As I reached the outer area, I saw them. Two people. Standing just outside the gate. Dressed clean. Professional. Out of place in a place like this. One of them held a folder. The other watched the building. Watching me. I know you are in there. The one with the folder said. Calm voice. Too calm. I stepped into view. Not hiding. Not anymore. They both looked at me carefully. Assessing. Measuring. You bought this property yesterday. The one with the folder continued. Yes. A small nod. Then the folder was opened. Papers inside. Neat. Official. You have been served, they said. The words landed without emotion. Like this was routine. Like I was just another name on a list. I stepped closer to the gate. What is this? A legal notice, they replied. Challenging the validity of the transfer. That was fast. Too fast. No one moves this quickly unless they were already prepared. Which meant, they knew someone would buy this place. And they were ready to stop it. On what grounds? I asked. Concerns regarding your mental state at the time of purchase. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was predictable. They used the same tactic on me before. Control the narrative. Question the person. Erase credibility. You are saying I am not capable of making decisions, I said. I am saying, the voice remained steady, that this transaction is under review. Careful wording. Avoiding direct accusation. But the meaning was clear. They wanted this property back. Immediately. Who filed this? I asked. A brief pause. Then the answer. Your children. The air shifted. Not visibly. But I felt it. That final piece. That confirmation. Even after removing me. Even after taking everything. They were still trying to control what I had now. Which meant one thing. They were afraid of this place. Afraid of what it held. I reached for the papers. They handed them over without resistance. Confident. Too confident. Like they expected me to fold. Like everyone else had. I read the notice quickly. Legal language. Clean. Structured. But beneath all of it, urgency. They wanted a court hearing. Immediate review. Fast resolution. They did not want time. Time gives people the chance to uncover things. I looked up at them. You came quickly, I said. No response. But their silence answered enough. You were waiting, I added. Still nothing. But I saw it. A slight shift in posture. A small tension. I stepped closer. Lowered my voice. What is inside this place that scares you this much? That landed. Not loudly, but clearly. The one holding the folder closed it slowly. This is a legal matter, they said. Do not complicate it. Too late. It was already complicated. They turned to leave. No argument. No warning. Just certainty. Like they believed this would end soon. I watched them walk away. Every step they took confirmed something inside me. This was not just about ownership. This was about exposure. And they were trying to shut it down before it reached that point. I looked back at the jail. At the broken walls. The rust. The silence. And suddenly, it looked different. Not abandoned. Protected. Hidden in plain sight. I walked back inside. Straight to the room with the files. No hesitation now. No doubt. I opened another box. More documents. More names. And then, something new. A contract. Recent. Very recent. Signed. Approved. And scheduled. A future transfer. Not yet completed. But close. The name on that document was not mine. It was someone else's. Another target. Another person about to lose everything. The same way I did. My grip tightened. This was still happening. Right now. And I was standing inside the center of it. I looked back at the legal notice in my hand. Then at the files around me. They wanted this place back. Quickly. Quietly. Before I understood what it really was. But they made one mistake. They thought I was still the same person who stood outside that locked door. I was not. Not anymore. I folded the notice carefully, placed it inside my pocket, and made a decision. If they wanted to take this to court, then court was exactly where this needed to go. Because what they saw as a simple case was not simple anymore. It was evidence. And I was no longer just defending myself. I was about to expose them. All of them. And somewhere, whether I could see them or not, I knew they were already preparing their next move. Because this time, it was not just about taking something from me. It was about stopping me. Before I said too much, by the time I stepped out of that jail again, I was no longer reacting. I was planning. The legal notice sat in my pocket like a ticking clock. They wanted speed, which meant I needed control. And control starts with understanding the game. I walked for nearly an hour before I stopped in front of a small law office. Nothing impressive. No polished glass. No grand signage. Just a simple board with a name. Evelyn Carter, attorney at law. I stood there longer than I should have. Not because I was unsure, but because this was the moment everything shifted. Walking inside meant I was no longer just surviving. I was stepping into a fight. And once that starts, it does not end quietly. I pushed the door open. A small bell rang above me. Inside, the office was quiet. Organized. Minimal. A person sat behind the desk, reading through a file. They did not look up immediately. Appointment, the voice asked. No. Now they looked at me. Sharp eyes. Observant. Not judging, just calculating. I need help, I said. That was enough. They closed the file slowly. Sit. I did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then they leaned forward slightly. Start from the part where it stops making sense. That line stayed with me. Because everything stopped making sense the moment my own children locked me out. But I did not begin there. I told them about the jail. The $5 deal. The box. The documents. The names. And then, I placed the legal notice on the table. They picked it up. Read it once. Then again. Slower. Their expression did not change, but something in their posture did. Interest. Real interest. They moved fast, they said quietly. Yes. They usually do not move this fast, unless something is at risk. That confirmed it. Not just suspicion. Pattern. You have seen something like this before, I said. A pause. Then a careful answer. I have seen pieces of it. Pieces. Not the whole thing. Which meant what I had found was bigger than a single case. They looked at me again. Different this time. You kept copies? They asked. I brought everything. I slid the folder across the desk. They opened it. Flipped through the pages. Stopped. Went back. Read more carefully. And then, For the first time, they leaned back. Not relaxed. Alert. This is not just a property dispute, they said. I know. No, they added. I still on the papers. You do not fully know yet. That sentence carried weight. The kind that makes you listen. This connects multiple transfers across different jurisdictions, they continued. Same structure. Same legal pattern. Same type of targets. Targets. That word landed hard. Because that is exactly what it felt like. What happens to those people? I asked. They did not answer immediately. Instead, they closed the folder. Looked directly at me. They disappear from the process. Disappear how? Legally, they said. Their claims get dismissed. Their credibility gets questioned. Their voice gets buried. Just like mine. They lose everything, I said. Yes. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Real. Then they leaned forward again. But you are different. I did not react. I waited. You have the source, they said, tapping the folder. Not just the outcome. That was the difference. I had not just been affected. I had found where it started. And that scares them. I said. It should. That was when I made my decision clear. I am not backing down. They studied me for a moment. Long enough to test whether I meant it. Then a small nod. Good, they said. Because they are not going to make this easy. I do not expect them to. Another pause. Then they asked the question that changed everything. Do you trust your children? The answer came instantly. No good, they said again. Because they are not just witnesses in this. I felt it before they said it. That shift. That deeper layer. They are going to testify against you. There it was. Not just betrayal. Participation. Public. Controlled. They will say I am not stable, I said. They already have, Evelyn replied. They will say I was manipulated. Yes. They will try to make me look incapable. They will not try, Evelyn said calmly. They will do it. That certainty did not scare me. It focused me. What do we do? I asked. They leaned back slightly, thinking. Then, we do not defend, they said. I frowned. Then what? We expose. That word changed the direction of everything. This was no longer about protecting what I had. This was about revealing what they were hiding. And the court? I asked. They think this will be routine, Evelyn said. Quick hearing. Simple decision. You lose. They take control. And instead, they get something else entirely. I felt it then. For the first time since this started. A shift in power. Small, but real. What do you need from me? I asked. Everything you have not told me yet, they said. I hesitated. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I realized something. There is more, I said slowly. There always is. The night I found the documents, someone was inside. That made them pause. Not dramatically, but enough. You are sure? Yes. Did you see them? No, but they were there. Yes. That changed the situation. Not legally. Personally. They are not just watching this from a distance, Evelyn said quietly. They are close. Too close. And the car, I added. Black sedan. Watching me after the purchase. They nodded once. Then you need to be careful. Careful. Not afraid. That distinction mattered. They will not stop at legal pressure, they continued. Not if this connects the way I think it does. I understood. This was no longer just a courtroom fight. This had already moved beyond that. So what happens next? I asked. They stood up, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a fresh file, placed it on the desk. We prepare, they said. For what? They looked directly at me. For the moment they realize you are not the one on trial. That line settled deep. Because that was the shift. That was the turning point. They thought they were coming after me. They had no idea. I was about to turn everything back on them. I stood up slowly. The exhaustion was still there. The weight of everything still pressing against me. But something else had taken its place now. Direction. Clarity. Purpose. I was not alone anymore. And for the first time since that door closed behind me, I was not the one being pushed. I was stepping forward. And somewhere, whether they knew it yet or not, everything they had built was about to be questioned. In public, where they could not control the outcome. The courtroom was quieter than I expected. Not empty, just controlled. Like everything that happened inside those walls had already been decided somewhere else. I arrived early. Evelyn walked in beside me, carrying a single file. Not the full stack. Just one. That told me something immediately. We were not here to reveal everything. Not yet. This is just the beginning, Evelyn said as we took our seats. I know. They will try to end it. Today. They will not. A slight glance from Evelyn. Not doubt. Measurement. Then a small nod. Across the room, I saw them. Daniel, Sarah, sitting together. Calm. Composed. Like nothing had happened. Like they had not taken everything from me. Like I was just a problem to solve. For a brief moment, something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not sadness. Recognition. These were no longer just my children. They were part of something else now. And today, they were on the other side. They did not look at me immediately. But when they did, there was no hesitation. No guilt. Just distance. That told me everything. This was not pressure. This was choice. The judge entered. The room stood. Then sat. And just like that, it began. The opposing attorney stood first. Confident. Prepared. Practiced. Your Honor, they began. This is a straightforward matter involving an elderly individual who has recently made a series of questionable decisions regarding property ownership. Straightforward. That word again. They needed it to sound simple. Controlled. Predictable. They continued. The purchase in question raises serious concerns about mental competency, financial awareness, and susceptibility to influence. There it was. The structure. Step by step. Break credibility. Question judgment. Control the narrative. I did not react. Not outwardly. But I felt Evelyn shift slightly beside me. Not tense. Ready. We will demonstrate. The attorney continued. That this transaction is not valid and that intervention is necessary to protect all parties involved. Protect. Another word used carefully. They were not attacking me. They were helping. That is how they win. By making control look like care. The judge nodded. Call your first witness. And just like that, Daniel stood up, walked to the stand, took the oath, and sat down. I watched every step, every movement, searching for something, anything. But there was nothing. No hesitation. No conflict. Just calm. The questioning began. Can you state your relationship to the respondent? I am their child. The voice was steady, clear, practiced. Have you observed any changes in their behavior recently? A pause. Just long enough to feel real. Yes. What kind of changes? They have become unpredictable. Unpredictable. That word landed harder than it should have. Because it was believable. Carefully chosen. What do you mean by that? Decisions that do not make sense. Sudden actions. Lack of awareness about consequences. Every sentence built the same picture. Not dangerous. Not aggressive. Just unstable. That is more effective. The attorney nodded. And the purchase of this property? I believe they did not fully understand what they were doing. There it was. Clean. Direct. Controlled. Not an attack. A concern. I am worried about their safety, Daniel added. That almost made me smile. Not because it was funny. Because it was perfect. Perfectly constructed. Perfectly false. The attorney stepped back. Satisfied. Your witness. Evelyn stood. No rush. No unnecessary movement. Just calm. Measured. And walked toward the stand. Daniel. Evelyn began, voice steady. You said you were concerned about their safety. Yes. And their decision-making. Yes. Evelyn nodded once. Then, you helped them sign legal documents recently, correct? A pause. Small, but real. Yes. What were those documents for? Financial adjustments. Did you explain them fully? Yes. Did they understand what they were signing? Yes. Evelyn took a step closer. And yet, you are now saying they do not understand legal decisions? Silence. Just for a second. But it was enough. Daniel shifted slightly. They understood at the time. At the time, Evelyn repeated. So their understanding changed suddenly? I believe so. Convenient timing, Evelyn said quietly. The courtroom shifted slightly. Not loudly, but enough. Pressure. Controlled. Evelyn continued. You were also involved in property-related transactions in the past year, correct? Another pause. Yes. Multiple ones. Yes. Evelyn opened the file. Just one page. Not everything. Just enough. Does this document look familiar? Daniel looked at it. His expression did not change much. But something flickered. Recognition. Yes. You signed this. Yes. This is a transfer authorization linked to the property in question. Silence. Then yes. Evelyn turned slightly, facing the judge. Your Honor, the witness is not just concerned family. They are directly connected to the property being disputed. The room shifted again, more noticeable this time. The clean narrative was starting to crack. The opposing attorney stood quickly. Objection. Relevance. Evelyn did not raise their voice. Establishing involvement. The judge considered for a moment. Then, overruled. Continue. That was the first real break. Evelyn turned back. Daniel, were you aware this property contained historical records tied to multiple ownership transfers? I know. You were not aware, Evelyn repeated, even though your signature appears on documents connected to it. Silence. Longer this time. I do not recall. Do not recall. Another safe answer, but weaker. Evelyn nodded slightly, then stepped back. No further questions. Daniel stepped down, not shaken, but not as steady as before. That mattered. Even small cracks matter. Then, Sarah was called. She walked to the stand. Different energy. More emotional. More expressive. And that was intentional. If logic cracks, emotion takes over. The questioning began. Can you describe your relationship? Tears formed instantly. Controlled. Measured. We care deeply, Sarah said. We just want them safe. The courtroom softened. That was the goal. Pull sympathy. Shift focus. We tried to help, Sarah continued. But they pushed us away. That was new. A subtle shift. Now I was not just unstable. I was resistant. Difficult. Dangerous to myself. Evelyn watched closely, not interrupting, letting it play out. Because sometimes, the story exposes itself. Then came the moment. The unexpected turn. The opposing attorney asked one more question. Did they ever mention this property before purchasing it? Sarah hesitated. Just slightly. But enough. Then yes. The room went still. Evelyn looked up. Sharp. Focused. What do you mean? The attorney asked. They said they had seen it before. That was not true. And Evelyn knew it. I saw it in the way they stood. This was not part of the plan. This was something else. Something unexpected. Evelyn stood immediately. Your Honor, I request permission to cross-examine immediately. Granted. They approached slowly. Eyes locked. Sarah, Evelyn said, voice calm but precise. When exactly did they mention this property? Sarah swallowed. Before the purchase. Where? At home. Which home? Evelyn asked. A pause. Longer this time. And then, our home. There it was. A mistake. Small. But critical. Because legally, that was no longer my home. Not at that time. The timeline did not match. Evelyn did not react outwardly. But I felt it. That shift. That opening. Because in that single answer, something had just been exposed. And for the first time in that courtroom, the story they built was no longer holding together. The courtroom emptied slowly. Voices low. Controlled. Careful. But beneath that calm surface, something had shifted. I could feel it. That small mistake Sarah made, it did not end the case. But it cracked something open. And once something cracks, it never fully closes again. Evelyn walked beside me, without speaking, until we stepped outside. Only then did they stop. That was not planned, Evelyn said quietly. I know. They adjusted mid-testimony. They slipped. Evelyn nodded once. Yes. And people like that do not slip unless pressure is building. Pressure. That meant we were getting closer. Not to winning. To something they were trying to keep hidden. What happens now? I asked. Evelyn did not answer immediately. Instead, they looked across the street. Focused. Watching. I followed their gaze. The same black sedan. Parked. Engine running. Not hiding. Not moving. Just there. They are not subtle anymore, Evelyn said. They were never subtle, I replied. I just did not see it before. A slight pause. Then, you are not going back to that place alone tonight. It was not a suggestion. I have to, I said. Evelyn looked at me. Long measured. You already know they have been inside. Yes. You know they are watching. Yes. And you still want to go back. Yes. That was the moment something changed. Not in me. In how Evelyn looked at me. Less like a client. More like someone already inside the fight. Then we do not go unprepared, they said. Underscore. Night came faster than expected. Or maybe it just felt that way. We returned to the jail together. This time, I was not alone. But the feeling did not disappear. If anything, it grew stronger. The gate creaked again as we entered. The same sound. The same echo. But now, it felt like something was listening. Evelyn moved carefully. Not afraid. aware. Every step deliberate. You said the files were in a separate room, they said. Yes. We moved down the corridor. The air was colder than before. Heavier. And then, Evelyn stopped. What is that? I followed their gaze. The floor. Near the wall. Marks. Fresh. Scratches. Not old. Not faded. New. Like something heavy had been dragged. Recently. They were here, Evelyn said. Not a question. A statement. And not just looking, I added. Moving things. We reached the hidden room. The door was open wider than before. That alone was enough to confirm it. Someone had returned. After me. After the hearing. Evelyn stepped inside first. I followed. The shelves were still there. The boxes. The files. But something was wrong. Subtle. Not obvious. They took something, Evelyn said. How can you tell? Because they did not take everything. I looked closer. One shelf, slightly uneven. One space, just empty enough to notice. They knew exactly what they wanted, Evelyn continued. That made it worse. This was not random searching. This was targeted removal, which meant they knew what mattered, and they knew what we might use. Evelyn moved toward the remaining boxes. Opened one, scanned quickly, then another. Then, they stopped. Here. I stepped closer. Inside the box. A different set of documents. More recent. More detailed. Not just transfers. Connections. Names linked together. Entities. Signatures across multiple locations. In one section. Highlighted. This, Evelyn said quietly, is what they missed. I leaned in, reading carefully. It took a few seconds. Then it hit. This connects everything, I said. Yes. Not just properties. Not just individuals. A network. Structured. Layered. Protected. And buried inside it. Familiar names. Not just Daniel. Not just Sarah. Others. People with influence. Positions. Authority. This was not small. This was controlled. And suddenly, the legal case felt different. Much different. This cannot stay here, Evelyn said. No, because next time they will not miss it. I nodded. Carefully, we gathered what we could. Not everything. Only what mattered. Only what proved the pattern. Because taking everything would alert them. But taking the right pieces, that changes the game. As we turned to leave, a sound echoed through the corridor. Footsteps. Clear. Close. Not distant this time. Not hidden. Right outside. Evelyn froze. So did I. Another step. Slow. Measured. Not rushing. Whoever it was knew exactly where we were. Evelyn lowered their voice. We do not run. I was not planning to. Good. The footsteps stopped. Right at the entrance. Silence followed. Heavy. Waiting. Then, a voice. Calm. Controlled. You should not be here. Not loud. Not threatening. But it carried weight. Authority. I stepped forward. Into the doorway. The figure stood just beyond the light. Face partially hidden. But posture. Confident. You have something that does not belong to you. The voice continued. It does now, I replied. A slight pause. Then, you do not understand what you are holding. I understand enough. A quiet exhale. Almost like disappointment. No, the voice said. You understand just enough to become a problem. There it was. Not a warning. A classification. I was no longer invisible. I was now a risk. And what happens to problems? I asked. Silence. Then, they are resolved. Not a threat. A statement. Clean. Direct. Evelyn stepped beside me. Not behind. Not hiding. Present. Visible. Then you should reconsider, Evelyn said calmly. For your own sake. The figure shifted slightly. Not stepping forward. Not stepping back. Just enough to show attention. You are making this more complicated than it needs to be, the voice said. No, Evelyn replied. You already did that. Another pause. Longer. Then, you still have time to walk away. That was the offer. The last one. I knew it. Evelyn knew it. And whoever stood in that darkness knew we knew. I tightened my grip on the documents. No one word. No hesitation. No doubt. The silence that followed was different. Not waiting. Deciding. Then next time, the voice said quietly, we will not be having a conversation. And just like that, the footsteps turned. Faded. Gone. No rush. No fear. Like they had already calculated the outcome. I stood there for a moment longer. Not moving. Not speaking. Then Evelyn exhaled slowly. That was not random, they said. I know. That was direct. Yes. And now, they looked at me. Clear. Certain. This is no longer just legal. I nodded, because that line had already been crossed. The moment I opened that box, the moment I saw those names, the moment I refused to walk away, I looked down at the documents in my hand, then back into the darkness where that figure had stood. They thought this would scare me, push me back, end it quietly. But they made one mistake. They spoke. And in doing that, they confirmed everything. This was real. All of it. And now, there was no turning back. The second hearing felt different the moment I walked in. Not louder, not crowded, just heavier, like something had already shifted beneath the surface. Evelyn did not carry a single file this time. There were two. That alone told me everything. We were no longer holding back. They will come prepared today, Evelyn said quietly as we took our seats. So will we. A slight nod. Across the room, Daniel and Sarah were already there. But something had changed. Their posture. Less relaxed. More guarded. They knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to feel it. The opposing attorneys stood again, but the confidence from before had tightened. Controlled, but strained. Your Honor, they began. We would like to proceed efficiently today and resolve this matter without unnecessary complication. There it was again. Push for speed. Limit exposure. Keep it contained. The judge nodded. Proceed. The attorney moved quickly. No long introduction. Straight to the point. We maintain that the respondent lacks the capacity to manage this property and that continued ownership presents risk. Same argument. Same structure. But faster now. Like they were trying to outrun something. Call your witness. Sarah again. That was a choice. Emotion over logic. Repair the damage from last time. She took the stand. This time more composed. Prepared. Careful. The questioning began. Can you clarify your previous statement regarding the property? A pause. Measured. Yes. I misspoke. Clean. Simple. Controlled. What did you mean to say? That I had heard about the property after the purchase, not before. There it was. Correction. Repair. But too clean. Too rehearsed. Evelyn did not react. Not yet. They waited. Let the statement settle. Let the court accept it. Because sometimes, you let something stand, so you can break it properly. The attorney nodded. And your concern remains the same? Yes, Sarah said. We are only trying to help. Of course. Always help. Always concern. Never control. The attorney stepped back. Satisfied. Your witness. Evelyn stood. Calm. Measured. And walked forward. Sarah, they began, voice steady. You said you misspoke previously. Yes. And today you are correcting that. Yes. Evelyn nodded once. Then opened the file. Not the large one. The smaller one. Strategic. Do you recognize this document? Sarah looked. A flicker. Fast. But real. Yes. What is it? A financial authorization. Signed by you? Yes. And dated? She hesitated. Just slightly. Then yes. Evelyn stepped closer. Read the date. Silence. Then, 2 months ago. Evelyn turned slightly. Facing the judge. That date places this document before the property purchase. The room shifted. Subtle, but undeniable. Evelyn turned back. And this document references the same property. Sarah froze. Not dramatically, but enough. I do not recall that. You do not recall signing a document referencing the same property before the purchase? I signed many documents. Safe answer, but weaker. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then, let us make it simpler. They flipped the page, revealing a section. Highlighted. This is your signature, Evelyn said. Yes. And this line here, a pause, mentions the property explicitly. The silence that followed was not neutral. It was pressure. Real. Visible. I may have overlooked that, Sarah said. There it was. Not denial. Not fully. Just uncertainty. And uncertainty breaks credibility. Evelyn stepped back slightly. No further questions. The damage was done. Clean. Precise. Not loud. But effective. The opposing attorney stood quickly, trying to regain control. Your Honor, this does not change the core issue. Evelyn did not wait. They stood. Your Honor, we would like to present new evidence. That landed. Because this was the moment. The shift. The judge looked up. Proceed. Evelyn walked forward. This time, opening the second file. The larger one. The room seemed to tighten. Not physically, but in focus. Because something was coming. Something bigger. These documents, Evelyn said, demonstrate a pattern of coordinated property transfers involving multiple individuals, including the witnesses. The attorney objected immediately. Speculation, evidence, Evelyn corrected calmly. The judge raised a hand. Let me see. Evelyn approached. Placed the documents carefully. No rush. No dramatics. Just clarity. The judge began reading. Slowly. Carefully. The room went silent. Completely. Even the smallest movement felt loud. I watched Daniel. His jaw tightened. Slightly. Sarah avoided looking forward. The opposing attorney stood still. Waiting. Calculating. Then, the judge looked up. Expression unchanged. But sharper. These documents suggest a broader pattern, they said. Not a conclusion. But not dismissal either. That was enough. The shift was official now. The case was no longer simple. No longer contained. No further action will be taken today, the judge continued. This matter requires deeper review. There it was. Delay. Time. The one thing they did not want. The attorney stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, we request. Denied, the judge said. Firm. Final. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. And just like that, everything changed. Under score, the courtroom did not erupt. It did not need to, because the silence carried more weight than noise ever could. People knew. Something was wrong. Something deeper than a family dispute. Evelyn gathered the files calmly. No celebration. No reaction. Just control. That went exactly how it needed to, they said quietly. Not finished, I replied. No, Evelyn said. Not even close. Across the room, Daniel stood. But this time, he looked at me differently. Not calm. Not controlled. Something else. Concern. Real. Sarah still did not look up. And that told me more than anything else. They were feeling it now. The pressure. The cracks. The loss of control. We walked out together. Step by step. Measured. But as soon as we stepped outside, the air changed again. That same feeling. Presence. Watching. I did not need to look. I already knew. But I did anyway. Across the street. The black sedan. Still there. Still waiting. But this time, it did not stay still. The engine started. The car moved forward slowly. Closer. Not fast. Not aggressive. Deliberate. Then it stopped. Right in front of us. The window lowered slightly. Just enough. The same voice. Calm. Controlled. You should have walked away. Evelyn did not respond. Neither did I. We tried to keep this simple. The voice continued. Now it will not be. That was not frustration. That was adjustment. A change in approach. You still have time, the voice added. I stepped forward slightly. No silence. Then you should prepare. The window rolled up. The car pulled away. Gone within seconds. I stood there. Still. Calm. Because something had become very clear. They were no longer trying to stop me quietly. They were preparing for something else. Something bigger. And now, so were we. I expected them to avoid me after the hearing. To disappear. To regroup somewhere out of reach. That would have been easier. Cleaner. But they did not. Daniel was waiting outside. Alone. No lawyer. No distance. Just standing there, like this was still a family matter. For a brief second, I saw something familiar in his face. Not the version from the courtroom. Not the controlled voice, the careful answers. Something older. Something closer to who he used to be. Then it faded. Replaced again by tension. You should not be doing this, he said. No greeting. No hesitation. Straight to control. I should not be exposing what you are part of. I replied. His jaw tightened. You do not understand what you are involved in. I almost smiled at that. I understand enough. No, he said, stepping closer. You found pieces. That is not the whole thing. That is exactly why I am not stopping. That landed. Not loudly, but clearly. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Not weak. Not broken. But aware. Aware that I was not stepping back. You are making this worse, he said quietly. For who? Silence. That answer mattered. And he knew it. For everyone, he said finally. Or for the people behind this. That was the line. The one he did not want crossed. Because the moment this became about them, he lost control of the narrative. His eyes shifted slightly. Not to me. Past me. Checking. Watching. That was when I realized something. He was not just here to talk. He was here to see what I knew. To what extent are you involved? I asked. He did not answer. Daniel. A pause. Long, heavy. Then, it was not supposed to go this far. That was not denial. That was admission. Controlled. Careful. But real. What was not supposed to go this far? I asked. The system, he said. The process. Say it clearly. He exhaled slowly. Like saying it out loud would make it real. We help move properties. There it was. Simple. Direct. Cold. Help who? I asked. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, people who need them. That answer almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny. Because it was weak. They take from people who trust their families, I said. That is not helping. His voice dropped. You think this is about greed. It is. No, he said sharply. It is about control. That word again. Control. Not money. Not survival. Power. Over people. Over property. Over outcomes. And you chose to be part of that, I said. His expression hardened. It is not a choice once you are inside. That changed everything. Because that meant one thing. He did not start this. He got pulled into it. How did it start? I asked. Silence. Then, it does not matter. It does. No, he said, more firmly now. Because once you see how deep it goes, you cannot step out. I took a step closer. I already stepped in. That landed. Because it was true. And he knew it. That was when the shift happened. Not in me. In him. Because now, he was not trying to control me. He was trying to warn me. They are watching everything, he said quietly. Every move. Every document. Every word in that courtroom. I know. No, he said, shaking his head slightly. You do not. You saw one person. That is not them. That is just someone they sent. That confirmed it. The voice. The figure at the jail. Not the source. Just a layer. How many layers are there? I asked. He did not answer directly. Enough, he said. That was worse. Because enough means invisible. Hard to track. Hard to stop. Then why are you here? I asked. That question mattered. Because if he was still part of it, this conversation was a risk. For him. For me. For you, he said. I did not respond. I waited. Walk away, he added. Take what you have and leave it. No immediate. No hesitation. His frustration showed now. Clear. Visible. They will not stop, he said. This is not a case you win. This is something you survive. That depends on what they are hiding. That is exactly the problem, he replied. Silence fell between us. Thick. Heavy. Because both of us knew. This was no longer about changing my mind. It was about what happens next. Did Sarah know? I asked. He closed his eyes briefly. Just a second. But enough. Yes. That word hit harder than anything else. Not because I doubted it, but because hearing it removed the last layer of denial. She agreed to this? Yes. No hesitation. No excuse. Just truth. I nodded slowly. Not an acceptance. An understanding. They were not pulled in accidentally. They chose to stay. Then there is nothing left to protect, I said. That line shifted everything. Because that was the last emotional tie. And once that is gone, only the truth remains. Daniel saw it. That change. That distance. And for the first time, he looked worried. Not about the case. About what I might do next. You are not going to stop, he said. No. And you are not going to stay quiet. No, a long pause. Then, they will come harder now. I know. And next time, it will not be a warning. I know. Silence again. But this time, different. Final. Because the conversation had reached its limit. There was nothing left to say. No argument left to make. No control left to hold. He stepped back slightly. Not turning away yet. Just creating distance. I tried, he said. For who? I asked. He did not answer. Because that answer would reveal too much. He turned. Walked away. No rush. No hesitation. But not calm anymore. Not controlled. Because now, he knew something had changed. Not in the case. In me. I was no longer reacting. No longer defending. I was moving forward. And whatever they had built, whatever system they were protecting, was now exposed enough to be challenged. I stood there for a moment longer, watching him disappear. Then I turned back toward Evelyn, who had been standing just far enough away to hear everything. You were right, I said. Evelyn nodded. Yes. This is bigger. Yes. And now, I looked back in the direction Daniel had gone. They are not just protecting it. Evelyn's voice was calm, but firm. They are trapped in it. That was the truth. And that truth made everything more dangerous. Because people who feel trapped do not act carefully. They act desperately. I took a breath. Slow. Controlled. Because the next step would not be quiet. And somewhere, beyond what I could see, I knew they were already preparing for it. The final hearing was not announced loudly. No media. No attention. No public noise. But inside that courtroom, everything was about to change. I felt it before I even walked in. Not fear. Not doubt. Certainty. Evelyn walked beside me, carrying the full file this time. No sections hidden. No pages held back. Everything. That alone meant one thing. This ends today. They will try to shut it down early, Evelyn said quietly. They will not succeed. A slight nod. No more words. Because at this point, everything that needed to be said had already been said. We entered. The room was fuller than before. Not crowded, but different. People who were not there in previous hearings. Observers. Quiet. Watching. That told me something. This had reached further than expected. Across the room, Daniel and Sarah sat again. But there was no calm left. No control. Just tension. Visible. Unavoidable. And behind them, someone else. Sitting still. Watching everything. Not speaking. Not reacting. But present. That presence felt different. Not like the others. Not like the lawyers. Not like the witnesses. This was someone who did not need to speak to hold influence. I did not look directly for long. But I knew. That was not just another observer. That was someone connected. Higher. Evelyn noticed too. A slight shift in posture. A quiet awareness. We expected this, they said under their breath. The judge entered. The room stood. Then sat. And just like that, it began. The opposing attorney stood quickly. Faster than before. Pushing momentum. Your Honor, we request a focused proceeding today. This matter has extended beyond its necessary scope. Necessary scope. They were trying to shrink it again. Control it. Contain it. The judge looked down. Calm. Measured. I will determine the scope, they said. That was the first signal. Control was no longer theirs. The attorney adjusted slightly. Then continued. We maintain that the respondent's actions are unstable and that the property in question should be reassigned immediately. Same argument. Same structure. But weaker now. Because the room already knew. There was more. Your response, the judge asked. Evelyn stood. No hesitation. No delay. We are not responding to the claim, they said. A pause. That line shifted everything. The judge looked up. Clarify. Evelyn stepped forward. We are presenting evidence. That was it. No build-up. No hesitation. Direct. The attorney objected immediately. Your Honor, sit, the judge said. Firm. Final. The room went still. Evelyn opened the file. Not one page. Not two. Multiple. Placed carefully. Systematically. Each document laid out like pieces of something larger. Your Honor, Evelyn began. This is not a case of capacity. This is a pattern. That word echoed. Pattern. Not incident. Not mistake. Structure. These documents show coordinated property transfers across multiple individuals, including those present in this courtroom. The air changed. Heavier. Sharper. Evelyn continued. The method is consistent. Legal authority is used to remove ownership quietly. Targets are selected based on vulnerability. And once the transfer is complete, the original owners are discredited. Silence. Complete. Because now, it was no longer hidden. It was spoken. Clearly. Directly. The judge leaned forward. Reading. Carefully. Page by page. No interruption. No dismissal. Just attention. The opposing attorney stood again. Your Honor, this is an attempt to distract. Sit down, the judge said again. Stronger this time. The attorney sat. Reluctantly. Because control was slipping. Evelyn turned slightly. Facing the room. Not dramatically, but deliberately. These names, they said, pointing to the documents, connect across multiple transactions. The same individuals appear repeatedly. The same legal representatives. The same approval channels. The pattern was undeniable now. Visible. Clear. And among those names, Evelyn continued, voice steady, are the witnesses who testified in this case. That landed hard. Because now, this was not theory. This was connection. Direct. The judge looked up. Eyes sharper now. Call the witness, they said. Daniel again. But this time, He did not walk confidently. He moved slower, measured, aware. He took the stand, swore the oath. Saturday. But everything had changed. Evelyn approached. No hesitation. Daniel, they said, you testified that your concern was safety. Yes. Do you still maintain that? A pause. Yes. Evelyn nodded, then placed a document in front of him. Is this your signature? He looked. Longer this time. Yes. This document links you to multiple property transfers beyond the one in question. Silence. Then, I signed many documents. Same answer, but weaker now, because the context had changed. These are not isolated, Evelyn continued. They follow the same structure, the same method. Daniel did not respond, because there was no safe answer left. Evelyn stepped closer. Who instructed you to sign these? That was the question, the one that mattered, the one that connected everything. Silence filled the room. Heavy, pressing. Daniel's eyes shifted. Not to Evelyn, not to me. Behind him, toward that same figure. Sitting still, watching. That was enough. That single movement answered more than words ever could. Evelyn saw it. The judge saw it. The room felt it. Answer the question, the judge said. Firm, direct. Daniel swallowed. His voice was quieter now. Controlled, but breaking. I was advised. By who? Evelyn asked. Silence. Longer this time. Because this was the line. The point of no return. If he spoke, everything collapsed. If he stayed silent, it still would. Because now, everyone knew. The judge leaned forward. You are under oath. That was the final push. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, and said, I cannot answer that. That was it. Not refusal, not denial. Confirmation. Because in that moment, the truth was no longer hidden. It was protected. And protection means exposure. The judge sat back, slowly, processing, understanding. Then, this court will not proceed under false pretenses, they said. The room went completely still. This matter is no longer limited to property dispute. It raises serious legal concerns that require investigation. There it was. Official, public, irreversible. The opposing attorney stood. This is unacceptable. Sit down, the judge said again. Final. This hearing is concluded. Further proceedings will follow under extended review. The gavel came down. And just like that, everything they built started to collapse. Understood. The room did not erupt. It did not need to, because everyone there understood what had just happened. This was no longer controlled, no longer hidden, no longer contained. Evelyn closed the file slowly. No reaction, no satisfaction, just awareness. It begins now, they said quietly. Yes. Across the room. Daniel did not look at me. Sarah did not move. And that figure behind them stood up, for the first time, tall, calm, controlled, and walked out. No rush, no fear, but not untouched. Because even from that distance, I could feel it. They had not expected this. Not fully. And now, they would have to respond. Differently. I stood there for a moment longer, breathing steady, mind clear, because the fight I stepped into was no longer mine alone. It was larger, public, exposed, and far from over. The days after the hearing did not feel real, not because things slowed down, but because everything started moving at once. Quietly, behind closed doors. The case was no longer just a courtroom matter. It had spread. Investigations began, not publicly announced, but visible if you knew where to look. Offices being visited, documents being requested, people being questioned, and for the first time, the system that operated in silence was being forced into the open. I did not receive threats anymore. That changed. Completely. No calls. No warnings. No black sedan waiting outside. That silence was different from before. This time, it was not waiting. It was adjusting. Evelyn noticed it too. They are pulling back, they said. Or preparing something else. I replied. Yes. Because people like that do not disappear. They reposition. But something else changed as well. The jail. That place was no longer just a discovery. It became a point. A center. A place where everything connected. We returned there during the day. No secrecy now. No hiding. And for the first time, others came too. Not many, but enough. People who had heard fragments. People who had experienced something similar. People who recognized the pattern. They did not come loudly. They came carefully, watching, listening, waiting to see if this was real, if this was safe, if this was different. I stood there, inside that same rusted structure, where I once had nothing. And now, people were standing beside me, not because they trusted me, but because they had nowhere else to go. That was when I understood something. This place was never just about what was hidden. It was about what could be built. Not later. Now. Evelyn saw it before I said anything. This cannot stay empty, they said. No, then we use it. That was the moment. The shift. The transformation did not begin with tools or repairs. It began with purpose. We cleared the first room, the one with the files. Carefully, not removing everything, only organizing, protecting, preserving what mattered. Because those documents were no longer just evidence. They were proof. And proof changes everything. The cells. We opened them fully, removed what we could, left what we needed, not to erase the past, but to redefine the space. Day by day, the place changed. Not dramatically, not instantly, but visibly. Broken became usable. Dark became open. Silent became active. People started returning. Not just once. Repeatedly. Some brought stories. Some brought documents. Some brought nothing, except the need to be heard. And slowly, a pattern formed again. But this time, it was not hidden. It was shared. Evelyn set up a small workspace. Nothing formal. Just a table. Files. Notes. Structure. We document everything, they said. Yes. Because this time, nothing would disappear quietly. Every story, every name, every connection, recorded, preserved. And something else happened. Unexpected. The same system that once operated in silence started losing control of it. Because once people speak, patterns become visible. And once patterns are visible, they cannot be denied. Understood. I returned one evening alone. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. The place was quieter at night, but not empty anymore. Not like before. I walked through the corridor slowly. The same path, the same walls, but it felt different. Lighter, not safe, but no longer controlled. I stopped at the room where I first found the box. That moment, still clear, still sharp. The beginning. I stood there for a while, thinking, not about what I lost, but about what had changed. Because everything had changed, not just around me, inside me. I was not the same person who stood outside that locked door. Not the same person who walked into this place for the first time. That version of me would not have stayed, would not have looked deeper, would not have fought. And yet, here I was, still standing, still moving forward. A sound behind me shifted my attention. Footsteps. I turned. Evelyn, you should not be here alone, they said. I am not alone. A slight pause, then a nod. Because that was true now. Not in the way it used to be, but real. They are responding, Evelyn said. How? Quietly. Distancing. Redirecting. That made sense. When exposure grows, control changes shape. They will try to rebuild somewhere else, I said. Yes. But not the same way. No, because this time, there was a record, a trace, a pattern that had been seen. And once something is seen, it cannot return to being invisible. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then Evelyn looked around. At the walls, the open cells, the space that once held secrets, and now held something else. This place, they said slowly, was meant to hide things. Yes. And now, I looked around, carefully, taking it all in. Now it reveals them. That was the transformation. Not physical, not just structural. Purpose shifted completely. From control to exposure. From silence to voice. Underscore. The investigation continued. Quiet. Steady. Unstoppable. Names began to surface. Connections expanded. And those who once operated without question now faced it. Publicly. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But consistently. And that consistency was enough. Daniel did not return. Not to the court. Not to the jail. Not to me. Sarah. Once. Briefly. She stood at the entrance. Did not step inside. Did not speak. Just looked. Long enough to understand that this place was no longer what they thought it was. Then she left. And I did not follow. Because some distances do not need to be closed. Underscore. I stood at the entrance that night, looking out at the same street, the same broken fence, but nothing felt the same. $5. That was all it took to step into this. But what it became was something no one expected, not even me. And the most unexpected part was not what I found. It was what I built from it. Because sometimes losing everything does not end your story. It changes your direction. And if you keep moving, you might find something that was hidden for a reason. I thought the hardest part was losing everything. I was wrong. The hardest part was what came after the truth surfaced. Because once something hidden is exposed, it does not end cleanly. It spreads quietly, relentlessly. The investigation did not explode overnight. There were no sudden arrests, no dramatic headlines, just steady movement. Files reopening, cases revisited, names questioned, and those who once operated without resistance now faced something unfamiliar. Attention. The system they built depended on silence, on people not connecting the pieces, on everything staying separate. But now, nothing was separate anymore. And that changed everything. Underscore. Weeks passed. Then months. The jail no longer looked abandoned. Not even close. It was still rough. Still imperfect. But alive. Every corner had purpose. Every room held something real. People came and went. Not out of curiosity, but because they needed answers. And for the first time, they were finding them. Not all at once. Not easily. But enough. Enough to keep going. Enough to keep speaking. Evelyn stood at the center of it all. Organizing. Connecting. Building structure where there had once been confusion. This does not stop here, they said one evening. No, I replied. It spreads. Yes. Because truth does not stay contained once it moves. Underscore. I stopped thinking about what I lost. Not because it did not matter, but because something else mattered more now. What this had become, what it meant, and what it was still uncovering. That is when the final piece surfaced. Not from the files. Not from the court. From somewhere unexpected. A letter. Delivered without a name. No return address. No explanation. Just placed at the entrance. Waiting. I picked it up carefully. The paper felt different. New. Intentional. Not old like the records. Not hidden like the files. This was meant to be found. I opened it. Inside. One page. Typed. Clean. Direct. You were never the target. I read it again. Slower. More carefully. You were the interruption. That line stayed. Because it shifted everything. Not chosen. Not selected. Inserted. By accident. Or maybe, by timing. I kept reading. The system functions when people follow expected paths. You did not. That was true. I was supposed to leave. Disappear. Accept what happened. But I did not. And that changed everything. You were removed to prevent exposure. Instead, you created it. I lowered the paper slightly. The weight of that sentence settling in. This was not just acknowledgement. This was confirmation. Everything I suspected was real. But then, the last line. And that is what stayed with me the most. This was never about stopping you. It was about delaying what comes next. I stood there for a long time. Not moving. Not speaking. Because that line was not about the past. It was about the future. And whatever this system was, whatever remained of it, it was not gone. Just disrupted. Just exposed. But still there. In pieces. Reforming. Adapting. Evelyn stepped beside me. You received it too, they said. I handed them the letter. They read it. Once. Then again. They are not finished, they said quietly. No, and neither are we. That was the truth. Clear. Simple. Final. That night, I walked through the jail one last time. Not as someone searching, not as someone reacting, but as someone who understood. Every step felt different. Not heavy, not uncertain, steady. I passed the first cell, the place where I found the box. The moment everything began. Then the corridor. Then the room with the files. The center. The core. And now, something else. I stopped there, looked around, took it in, because this place was never meant to be what it became. It was meant to hide, to store, to bury. But now, it did the opposite. And that was not an accident anymore. That was choice. My choice. I stepped outside. The air felt different. Not lighter. Not heavier. Clear. For the first time in a long time. There was no one watching. No car. No shadow. No presence. Just space. Open. Uncontrolled. And that was something I had not felt in a long time. I never went back to that house. Not once. Not even to look. Because that chapter ended the moment that door closed. And what came after was something entirely different. Daniel disappeared from the process. Not publicly. Not dramatically. Just removed. Sarah sent one message. No explanation. No defense. Just 3 words. I understand now. I did not reply. Not because I could not, but because some realizations come too late, and some distances remain for a reason. Underscore. The jail still stands. Not as it was. Not as it started. But as something else entirely. People call it different things now. Some say it is a place for truth. Some say it is a place for justice. Some just call it a second chance. I do not name it. Because what it is depends on who walks through it. And why. Underscore. If you made it this far, then you already understand something most people miss. This was never just about a place, or a case, or even a family. It was about what happens when someone refuses to disappear, when someone looks deeper, when someone keeps going, even after everything is taken, because that is where things change. Not loudly, not instantly, but permanently. Underscore. And here is the part most people will not tell you. Stories like this do not end. They continue. In different places. With different people. At different times. So if you are still here, watching, listening, thinking, then ask yourself one thing. If you found something like this, would you walk away? Or would you keep going? Underscore. If you want more stories like this, stories that stay with you, stories that make you think twice about what you see, then make sure you stay connected. Because the next one might not be so far from reality. Underscore. Kia story. KHTM Hogai Hahan. Main story Yahan complete. Ho Chuki High. Lekanek important bot samage low ya ending closed ending nahi high. Baki open-ended plus suspense continuation. Wali ending high. Joe YouTube storytelling Kaliya best Hodi high. Iska Matlab Kia high. Main conflict, court case plus system expose. Resolve Hogaya. Characters ka transformation complete Hogaya. Emotional arc. Betrayal strength purpose. Finish Hogaya Lekin. System Puri Terra Kadam Nahi Hua. Letter Ku through Ek Naya mystery open Ray Gaia. Future danger ka hint dia Gaia isi viewers combine me yereta high. Story Kadam Hui. Yashura Hui? Underscore. YouTube perspective SE. Yeah ending 3 calm Cardi high. 1. Audience KO satisfy B Cardi high 2. Curiosity Zinda Rockdi high 3. Next video slash sequel coolly yeah perfect setup Deddy high underscore underscore Regar Tom Cheho to main or be Bonasak de Hoon. Part 2, sequel story, System Ka next phase, alternate ending, emotional slash revenge based, shortened 20 to 30 minute narration version, YouTube ready, full 12,000 plus word expanded script, or deep scenes Kasaf. Underscore 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 BAS Pateo Tom next Kiachai. Ending closing crow sath CTA be do chodazagotit. I will give you a proper closed ending plus emotional resolution plus short powerful CTA without breaking your story tone. Underscore 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 final closing ending revised word count 500 underscore I stood there one last time at the entrance of that place that changed everything. The same rusted gate, the same broken walls, but nothing about it felt broken anymore because it was no longer hiding anything. It was standing, open, clear, honest. The investigation did not stay quiet forever. Names were confirmed, cases were filed, and one by one, the system that once moved in silence started losing its grip. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to stop it from working the way it used to. Daniel's name came up in those records. Not as a victim, as part of it. He faced the consequences. Not publicly loud, but legally final. Sarah chose a different path. She came back, not to defend herself, not to explain, just to stand there in front of me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said something simple. I cannot change what I did. I looked at her, not with anger, not with softness, just truth. No, I said, but you can decide what you do next. That was all. No dramatic forgiveness. No emotional collapse. Just a boundary. Clear. And she understood it. She nodded and walked away, not as someone running, but as someone who finally saw the weight of their choices. I never returned to that old house. Not because I was not allowed, but because I no longer belonged there. That chapter ended the day the door closed. And what came after was not something I lost. It was something I built. From nothing. From silence. From a place no one wanted. $5. That is what it cost. But what it became, no one could put a price on. Now when I walk through those halls, I do not see a jail. I see people who refuse to disappear. I see voices that were once ignored, now being heard. I see proof that even at 75, life does not end when everything is taken. Sometimes, that is exactly where it begins. And if there is one thing I know now, it is this. The moment you stop accepting what is done to you is the moment everything starts to change. If this story stayed with you, then stay with this channel, because the next one might feel even closer to reality.